Hello and welcome back. Today we'll be making a few breads. We'll be making a French baguette, well, an attempt to a French baguette, focaccia, and pita bread. So first we'll be starting off with our yeast. We'll be measuring our yeast, and we'll be adding lukewarm water as well to our yeast. And after so, this would be our first stage of proofing the yeast. We'll be leaving the yeast for 15 to 20 minutes to be proofed. And after so, we'll be back with mixing all of our dry ingredients together. So in the meantime, I decided to proof not only one bread, the yeast for the bread. I decided to take my time and proof all the bread's yeast in the lukewarm water. They were all in separate glasses. So at this stage, we're going to continue with our first stage of proofing, but we're also going to be moving on right now to measuring out all of our dry ingredients, which would be flour, salt, and sugar. All of the ingredients are now combined, so now I'll be kneading the dough. For the first time, we'll be kneading the dough. And after we finish kneading this dough, we'll be placing it back into the metal bowl so that we can go ahead to our second stage of proofing the yeast. We have 3 stages to go through, so be patient. But this is our second stage we're at currently. Okay, so the bread that we'll be now dealing with is the pita bread. We'll be rolling out the pita bread to a thin consistency. Please, I do warn you, this is my first attempt on pita bread. I end up doing 3 attempts on pita bread that day. However, I was not able to record all of them, but this was my first attempt. I realized at my first attempt I should have rolled out the bread more thinner. As you can see that the product at the ending will be a little bit thick, so I should have rolled it out more thinner. As I am removing all the excess flour from the pita bread, I'm moving on now to preparing my focaccia. So I got the idea and the inspiration from a chef on Instagram to infuse beetroot puree, well, beetroot in general, into my focaccia bread. And I actually like the idea. So I cut up some beetroots, blended it up in the blender. As you can see, my bread just went through the second stage of proofing. And for the focaccia bread, I actually did 4 stages of proofing additional because I added in the beetroot at this stage. So I was considering if there'd be a chemical reaction or if something would have made the yeast die. So I took the extra step in doing an extra proofing for the focaccia bread. I'll be kneading in the beetroot at this stage, the beetroot puree, and making sure that all of the dough is one consistent color. At this stage, I went to get my gloves and then I realized that the gloves were not working. So I remembered the old method of if you don't cook with your hands properly, like the food will not taste like it's full of love. So I just went ahead and just washed my hands and I went ahead and I knead the dough. My hands were washed before I went ahead and put on the gloves and after I took off the gloves. Ladies and gentlemen, now we'll be starting to make our French baguette. This was an attempt of a French baguette because it didn't come out exactly identical to the French baguette. I believe I made a good effort. We first had our first stage of proofing with the yeast in the beginning of this video. And now we're going to mix all of our dry ingredients together. We're measuring it on a scale. And after so, we'll be mixing it up and having our second stage of the proofing process for the French baguette. At this stage, we'll be finishing mixing our ingredients together for the French baguette, putting it aside so that it can go through its second stage of proofing. And in the meantime, I'll be going and washing my hands and going to go check on my pita bread, which looks very crispy as you all can see, but it's a learning process. So now I'll be looking on our focaccia. Our focaccia looks beautiful. The color is very vibrant. I was very interested in, excited to see how this color came out. I'll be dividing this focaccia in sections because it was so much dough, it risen a lot. So I measured how much I wanted to be cooked today because I wanted to bring some home. I also infused some thyme and rosemary into the dough. And after I go ahead and cut down the size of how much I would like to bake today, I'll be kneading it out and then putting it in this tin for its last stage of proofing. For this next stage, it required a lot of creativity. I did not have a proper baguette baking tin, so I tried to use the baking tin from yesterday's loaf, basic white loaf bread. I used the tin from that and I used full paper and I tried to make the baguette shape with the full paper. It was not perfect, but it required a lot of creativity and hard work, and it came out quite decent, I have to add. I will now be greasing the pan to now be adding in my baguette so that it can go through its final stage of proofing. Also, my focaccia, I'll also be now soon putting that in the oven. So at this stage, the French baguette was added into the oven. Also, the focaccia was added into the oven as well. As you can see, this was my, I think, third attempt, of the pita bread. And the finished product at home was divine. The focaccia needed a little bit more salt, a little bit more seasoning, as my parents would say, but it was divine. Hope you guys enjoy.